Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbes, and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live, coming to you live here from World Star Studios at Amsterdam Shopping Center. And with me this evening, after many, many years, I have the leader of the One St. Maartn People Party, Mr. Lenny. How are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good, and once again, thank you for having me on the program. It has been a very long time that I've been on the program. I think it goes back to the late 90s, probably early 2000 that I was on the program.
It's good to have you here, and I mean, you're also former commissioner.
Yes, former commissioner of the harbor. As a matter of fact, the harbor project started when I was commissioned on September 1st, 1998, in spite of what was said that others did it. But we know who basically started the project, and yeah, if others want to take credit, that's okay.
You was also involved in that buyback program that was put into the agreement at the time?
Yes, all of that started basically, you know, as I always said to people, that when you look at the harbor project, and again, when you go back to 1998, when I took office, because, you know, we had close to 10, 15 different commissioners who had spoken about starting the project, but it never got off the ground. And then I can remember in 1997, the former commissioner at that time had did some pile driving and told the people that the project was about to start. When I took office, the water rights from St. Maartn, the water rights of the harbor was not given. The financing was not in place. So I always said, how can you start a project if you don't have the financing in place? Because that's one of the most important things. But nevertheless, I am very happy to see where it has grown over the years, and happy to know that I was part of that, when the project basically started on September 1st, 1998.
Can you explain for the viewers who don't understand when you mention the water rights, because at that time the central government still owned the water around the island and the major water areas, right?
Yes, yes, because going back to the 1997, 1998, indeed, that all the water rights were owned by the federal government of St. Maartn. And I know that at that time, we had to travel to Curacao to meet with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Harold Henriquez, who was basically, that fell under his ministry. And we had some lengthy discussion with him. And I must say that I must give the former Minister of Transportation, Mr. Leo Chance, a lot of credit, because he assisted us in acquiring the water rights. And once we acquired that, we were able to start the project a couple of months thereafter.
It's amazing when you look at how the arrangement of the former Nelson Antilles was, and how difficult it was for St. Maartn to do business in those days.
Yeah, of course it was, because a lot of decision had to come from the federal government. I mean, when you look at certain legislation, whether it's taxes and others, it was done basically at the central government of the former Netherlands Antilles. And our representation there was minimum, because we only had 3 senators in the parliament at that time. So therefore, a lot of things that you would have wanted to do or could have done, yeah, you couldn't get it passed because you did not have a majority, unless you basically, you know, work with some of the other members in Parliament from Curacao, Bonaire, and even Sabre and Statia to get certain things passed.
So I'm sure you're pretty happy now seeing how the Port of St. Maartn is.
Oh yes, yeah, no, definitely. I think that I am extremely happy. I think when I look at the numbers, for example, last year they were talking about 1.9 million cruise passengers calling on St. Maartn. Okay, this year the numbers is going to shrink somewhat, but it's a good feeling when you look at the project and when you see many of the taxi drivers going to work and other people's going to work there. It makes me feel good to know that I was one of the person involved to get that project off the ground. It was a very difficult project. It took a lot of time. Another person that we need to give a lot of credit to is Mr. Fernando William, because he was appointed the managing director after Sonny Ho left, and he did a fantastic job in putting a lot of things together so we could have got the project off the ground.
That's quite interesting, because we always say that locals can't do it.
Well, you know, I am one of those, because, again, when I look at Fernando, because...
That's what brought up the name when you mentioned his name.
Yes, yeah. No, he did a fantastic job, and I can always remember when Sonny Ho you know, we needed to get somebody else. And of course, we approached Fernando William, who I knew working at BBW for many years. And
had no knowledge of the marine industry,
it was
right?
the first time.
So most people would say, why are you going to him?
But he had a good background. He had a financial background. I mean, he studied accounting, and he worked at BBW as the financial controller. So I feel, and this is my belief, that anyone that have a college degree, a master degree, that within short, you will be able to pick it up. I mean, once you put your mind to it, and he did a fantastic job, and I'm very happy to have been one of them that approached him in order for him to join. So we have a lot of capable people. They must only to give them a chance, an opportunity, because they will succeed, but they must be given the opportunity. And that's one of the things that is lacking for many of our people today.
You know, because today on this island, what you will hear from many people is that, oh, the person either doesn't have this or that. And here you, back what, 98 it was?
1998, yes.
Took a chance on a man that had no knowledge in that area, and look at it today. So I think it was a bold move in those days.
Yes, of course. But I think that today, when we look at the what's happening in St. Maartn, the development that has taken place here in St. Maartn, in my opinion, that a lot more people, our people, should have been given opportunity. And a lot has to do with the vision of government, you know, because when you talk about work permits, that it is government that basically grants those permits. I know a young gentleman that worked as a manager of one of the hotels, I think it's Flamingo Hotel, a young gentleman from here, St. Maartn, and after his contract was up, I mean, for whatever reason, he's no longer there, but we have a non-national that is doing the job. So you ask yourself, how is that possible? Because if you have someone with, and if the person has worked there for 3 years, it must be that the person was doing a good job, because a contract of that nature would have some clause in it that if he doesn't perform, that they should be able to get rid of him, whether to pay him out for 3 months or 4 months, but he lasted 3 years. You know, so we have a lot of capable people that they just need to get an opportunity to work.
So now that we're in a different political status now, and it's been 6 years, as leader of the One St. Maartn People Party, how do you feel about the island today?
Wow, I think that's a very loaded question. I would say this, that I am very disappointed. I am disappointed because I believe that we should have been much further than where we are today. We've had a lot of opportunities. I'm talking with the members in Parliament that there's a lot of things, because beforehand we always blame Curaçao, you know, because Curaçao had the majority, and certain things that you would want to bring forward for St. Maartn, you couldn't get it passed. Today we have 15 members in Parliament, and all 15 in my books are basically St. Maarteners. But yet there are so many things that can be done for our people, but they are not doing the things then for the people. I mean, if we take, let's look at the employment situation on the island. Every year, we have about 8 high schools that you have, let's say, an average of about 30 to 40 young people who are graduating and are looking for work. The final exams normally fall in the off season. So we have close to 300 young people every year are basically looking for work. And I believe that every member of Parliament, as well as the Council of Ministers, know that to be a fact. Yet we have unemployment among young people on an annual basis close to 25 to 30%. I mean, that is very scary. I mean, when we look at the crime situation on St. Maartn, I think we should not even have to ask why that is happening, because our young people are not finding suitable employment. They just can't find jobs because of the off season. And I believe that when we look at St. Maartn, that you're talking about a season about 5 months, December until about May, and after that 5 months for every business have to continue to finance the other 7 months. St. Maartn of today, we should have had an opportunity where we don't have any type of off season. I mentioned before, 1.9 million cruise passengers are calling on our shores every year. Yet we don't have a program in place to entice those people to come back the following year to spend 3-4 days during the off season. We look at South American market. You look at the dollars that are basically spent there to market St. Maartn in those particular countries. Those countries, Brazil, Colombia, most of those countries, their winter is basically our summer. So we should be in the position to spend more money to market St. Maartn there, to bring those people to our shows. But it is not happening, because when you look at Aruba does not enjoy any type of off-season. They don't know what off-season is all about. You look at any program on TV, and you would see Aruba, even Curacao, that are being promoted. We hardly see anything where St. Maartn is concerned. And I'm saying, after being in this business for so many years, we should be doing much better than how we are doing right now.
Understand that we also have a limited amount of hotel rooms on the island. Most of these rooms are timeshare rooms, and that's creating a problem.
No, but okay, that may be so, but the fact is that the limited amount of hotel rooms we have during the off-season, those rooms are available. This is what I'm talking about, not during the season, because I'm saying we're enjoying an 85 to 90% occupancy during the season, but I'm talking about the off-season, that those rooms are available, but we just don't have enough people to fill those beds, because the properties try to do some type of promotion, but I believe it is the responsibility of government. Let's look at all the surrounding islands. Every island in our surrounding has some type of musical festival. St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Curacao, Aruba. We don't. We don't have any type of musical festival that we can say we can attract people. In particular, you don't need another musical festival during the season. We need it during the off-season, whether it is July, August, or September, one of those months, so we can bring more people to St. Maartn. You know, these are ideas, and I'm saying we don't have to reinvent the wheel. These are things that we see happening in other islands, and all we have to do is create our own musical festival, come up with a program, a conversion program to convert those people. 1.9 million people coming to St. Maartn on a cruise ship, on cruise ships, that we should be in a position today to have some type of conversion program that those people can come back the following year, July, August. So, because when you do that, it means that, one, you're going to create more jobs, that people that are working on short-term contract can get a longer period to work. It generates more income for the government. We have more money to spend on health. We have more money to spend on education. But if we have to work with just 5 months, it is very difficult, and that's why we continue to have problems where our budget is concerned.
So what are some of the other major areas of concerns for you and the party?
Well, the social programs, I believe that we need to because St. Maartn has grown over the years, but unfortunately the people have been left behind. When we were in government going back to 1998, there were 2 signature projects that were important, the harbor and the airport. And we were able to start both of those projects. My colleague at that time, Elton Jones, started with the filling of the Flamingo Pond for the airport, and my person with the harbor. So those were 2 very, very important projects for the development of St. Maartn. I mean, today, both of those projects are basically up and running, has been producing tremendously for the island nation. But when we look at the social program, if we take, for example, education, in my opinion, education should be free. We should not have our kids now, the parents having to pay for primary and secondary education. It should be free. There are ways that we can, because the question always is that if it is free, how are you going to subsidize for the amount of money that the schools will be losing? And I'm saying right now, take for example GB. NVGB is charging the schools the same commercial rates that they're charging Maho and West End. I mean, that is ridiculous that you would have a government-owned company that is charging our school. And if education is so important to us, then how is it possible that GB, that the schools, all the schools, are paying the same rate like Maho and West End? I mean, we can find ways to charge them either a residential or a lower rate. Solar panels. We can look at installing solar panels in all the schools to cut back in terms of the consumption of electricity, so that those schools would have more money that they can use to set up maybe state-of-the-art computer centers. That same computer center that is used during school hours, after 6 o'clock, we can basically offer adult education, because we do have a lot of illiterate computer on the island, and this is one way that we would be able to make them more literate in terms of computers.
If you go across the border, the French side have installed many solar panels on the schools on the French side.
Yes, you see it on the schools, you see it on a lot of private homes, you see it on many businesses. So it is one of the things that we have to, and I'm saying that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are things that we know that needs to be done, and I believe that every government that has been sitting there know that these basic things, because when you take a school, for example, where there's a Catholic school or the Methodist school board that pays close to 26,000 guilders a month for electricity and water consumption, and you have a company that is owned 100% by the government extension, the people of St. Maartn, and we cannot take a decision within. And I have been, one of the things I've indicated that I felt that the new board that was installed at GB, that should have been one of the first decisions that they had to take to basically to change the rate, the commercial rate, to a residential or lower rate, so that with the new school year 2016-2017, that our parents should not have to pay school fee for this starting this year. You know, and I believe it is something that should still happen. You know, that our primary and secondary education should be free.
So you feel that that will offset the removal of the fee that parents are paying now for the school?
Yes, it would, and of course with the installation of solar panels, and it would help because, you know, I recall about 2 weeks ago I was on Front Street at by Music Man, and this parent and his daughter came in, and we started to talk, and they said to me they just came from the library because his daughter had to do some assignments, and they don't have a computer at home, so she had to go at the school, at the library, in order to do that assignment. Now, I believe that, and they were living on L.B. Scott Road. Now, if the schools in that vicinity had computers that were accessible to the people in that area, then she would not have to travel to go to the library to do her assignment. Because, I mean, it's unheard of that in our time, in this age, that we can have parents that have to go through that situation. But things are tough. You know, for many people, it may seem easy, and some will say, but yeah, a computer, you can get a computer for $500. But the fact is, if you don't have it and you have a choice to put food on the table, to pay GB, I believe you're going to put the food on the table and pay GB. So therefore, you will not be able to buy that computer. And then coming to the minimum wage, when we talk about social program, that you have a minimum wage today of 1,500 guilders. We have not seen no increase over the years where the minimum wage is concerned. As a matter of fact, I refer to it as a starvation wage, and therefore I'm one of those that support an increase in the minimum wage to a living wage to at least 1,800 guilders. And the same thing goes for pension. You know, that 1,000 guilders. I mean, the last couple of days, we've spent a lot of time talking to the people in the emergency government homes, and you meet a lot of people there that are basically pensioners. Okay, we met a young lady 71 years of age, and was basically evicted from one of the emergency homes because she could not pay the rent. Now, I am saying, when you look at basically what she was collecting, about 700 guilders she was collecting in pension. Now, it is next to impossible to have to pay $200. So you're talking about 360 guilders. She has to eat. She has to pay GB. She has to buy personal things for herself. It's next to impossible for somebody to continue, even though for some $200 is nothing. But when your only income is about 700-800 guilders, it is very difficult. And that's why the social programs that we need to step up and improve on the social programs where our people are concerned.
Did I read somewhere that you also calling for selling
the emergency homes? Yes, we have submitted a proposal. Well, this goes back to 2015, and this is one of the things that I have said to a lot of people, that in spite of us participating in the 2014 election, and we were not elected, but that did not cramp our style. We continue to function by sending in proposals to the government, requesting information from the government. And in 2015, we sent in a letter to government indicating to the government at that time that they should consider selling the emergency homes to the people. Now, in some of the areas, for example, if we look in the Keys, that's private land. We have emergency home. In Dutch Quarter, that also is private land. And in Coal Bay, that's private land. But we have two areas where it is government land. You have the Foga Pond, here in Phillipsburg, and you have also in South Reward, close to the school, that you have those emergency homes. And again, government doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, because in 1994, the government houses in South Reward were sold to the people, and they were sold for $10,000. And those homes were built in 1975. So some 19 years after, they basically sold the homes to the people. So I think the same thing can happen where these are concerned. This is some 20 years since Hurricane Lewis, so these 21 years. So these people should get the opportunity, those that can afford it, to buy those homes.
And those were the last real social homes on St. Maartn, because I think the payment in terms of monthly rent was between 75 and 100 guilders.
100 guilders, yes, right? Yes.
And now let's go to Belvedere, and you see what people are paying. That's not social housing.
Yeah, and government has an opportunity now, once again, because as you know that government acquire some land over the bank, close to the Vineyard building, some 110,000 square meters of land they acquire based on prescriptive rights. And of course, the rumor is that the incumbent government is planning to, as we will use in local term, peddle off that land.
Incoming?
Well, no, I'm saying the government that is sitting there, okay, that they are planning to peddle off the land to people in terms of votes, to generate votes. And I believe that it would be a crying shame if the present minister of Vrommie, Mr. Myers, as well as the leader of the government, Mr. William Maartn, would basically do the things that the party that I was part of, that we were against. That today you have 110,000 square meters of land, and I believe that a lot can be done for the people. In my opinion, and therefore next week, or maybe the ending of this week, we are planning to submit a proposal to the government, telling the government basically to transfer that land to the St. Maartn Housing Development Foundation. Because I can imagine that the government that is sitting there now, and no one has a guarantee that they're going to return. So you don't want to leave the land there, because the possibility that the next government might do the same thing, or the things that you don't want to do. So the best thing that I believe that this government can do is basically to transfer the land to the St. Maartn Housing Development Foundation, but with certain guidelines, that they must build low-income homes, and as well as duplexes that people can rent. Because the problem when you go back to Belvedere, that property there, government had to buy. And based on that, that would cause the rent to be the price it is today. In South Reward, it was government land. So therefore, all they had to do was basically build them. Today, now that they have 110,000 square meters of land, they can basically build those homes, be able to sell, be able to rent at very, very good prices to the people of St. Maartn.
Is it flat land at the
No, it is basically, it has a slope.
And that's going to be more costly too.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. But then that's what you can use to build apartments and different things like that. And yeah, even so, because the biggest cost in any construction, the land is very, is a major portion of that. Because if you look at a parcel of land, let's talk about 500 square meters, today in that area there, you can look at least $130 to $150 a square meter. So 500 square meters, yeah, you can talk at least about $85,000 to buy a parcel of land over there. You know, but the fact that it belongs to government, so government should do the right thing. And doing the right thing would be to transfer it, in my opinion, to the St. Maartn Housing Development Foundation with certain guidelines, so that even if another government comes in, it is already in the Housing Foundation name, and based on that, the board of that foundation would be able to execute or carry out the wishes of the government.
There was other property that was purchased by the government, the Force property.
The Force estate.
And that was given off for what, one guilder?
Yeah, I think that is a crying shame, because when you look at the amount of money that the government owes the General Pension Fund, I mean some 30 to 40 million guilders, and here you bought a property for 8.1 million guilders and just give it to them at a guilder. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, I mean, we are trying to get documentation on that, because I can't understand why would government take a decision like that. And then when you look at the price, that's the next thing too, because we have done some research and we have looked at property that was purchased in that same area over the last 2-3 years, and you're talking about basically $110, $120 a square meter, while this land is way in excess of that. So you have to ask yourself the question, why would a government go and purchase land at such a high price? And because what that does now, that any private citizen or who has land, if government wants to buy that land, they're going to tell them, well, look, if you can pay in excess of $200 or $300 a square meter for land in Cahill, then we want the equivalent of that also. So I think it was a mistake that the government made at that particular time.
You know, there are areas in St. Maartn today where land is at $300-400 US a square meter.
Yeah, of course, definitely. I mean, you know, I know even at the harbor at one time they were talking about $500 a square meter. You know, so yes, there are in certain areas where the price of land, and that's why I'm saying that government acquiring this land based on prescriptive rights should give them the opportunity to build low-income homes. And I would say, let's look at our civil servants, let's look at the police officers, let's look at the nurses, our teachers. That should be a priority group, because it is important that we have people, because if you look at it realistically, when a person is working, but and knowing that the bulk of your salary goes in rent for a house that would never be used as an apartment, at least it would give them a certain freedom to know that I am paying rent or I'm paying for a mortgage, but within a 15-year period of time, that house is mine. And I believe that the government has a golden opportunity at this moment to do something with that land that will be beneficial to the people. The same thing, we have a lot of young people that are studying abroad. I mean, when a young person leaves here and they go to whether it's America or they go to Europe, in particular to the Netherlands, most of them are living on their own. And when they come back to St. Maartn, I believe that after living in Holland for 5-6 years, they don't want to come and live with mommy and daddy again. And again, that can be used as an incentive to attract our young people to come back to St. Maartn. For example, you say to them, look, we are going to exempt you from paying, let's say, the 4% property transfer tax, you know, on the first property that you bought. As a young professional, you come back to St. Maartn, we are going to exempt you from doing that. We are having to pay that. The homes that we have, we are going to make sure that we reserve a certain amount of those homes for our young people. There got to be some type of incentive, because we have a lot of our young people that are studying abroad. Many of them, they're graduating, but they're giving their best years to those large countries. And in many cases, I use the term when they reach the pensionable age, or 5 years before they reach pension, then they come back to St. Maartn. But they give their best years to those countries. And why? Because we don't have an incentive program to bring them back to St. Maartn to help develop this country.
So as leader of the One St. Maartn People Party, what's your party main vision for St. Maartn?
Well, you know, I think that one of the main areas that we will be focusing on should we be elected would be basically the economy. You know, that is basic, because you need to have a strong economy in order to take this nation forward. We're talking about the budget. That, I mean, we've listened to the last 2 or 3 budgets that the first year, I think 2016, that we have a balanced budget. So you need to have a strong economy. I've listened to the Minister of Finance, where he's talking about acquiring $20 million to invest in tax administration and tax planning.
How do you feel about that?
Well, no, I believe that, and that's why I said one time on a radio program that it seems as if the Minister of Tourism was asleep, because yes, it's important to improve the tax administration, but what needs more improvement is our economy. I think that, because if we're talking about, let's say, a 22 to 23% collection rate that we're talking about, and whether you have, because if we look at we look at Curacao, we look at Aruba, and all of them are more or less within that range, 23, 24, 25, 26%. But I think that if you can raise it to 26%, but you have a economy that is working for you, okay, that businesses are doing well. It means that they're going to pay more profit taxes, they're going to pay more turnover tax. The wages, more people are working, and that's why I talked about all year round in a season, so not just 5 months, because if you have a season all year round, so June, July, August, September, October, November, that you have people working, it means that you are going to generate more income, more wage tax, the businesses are going to pay more profit tax. So for us, the most important thing is the economy, because if the economy is not working, because when we look at the unemployment, particularly among young people, and this is one of the things that kind of bothered me, because I remember in 1984, there was a law that was passed in 1989, October 1989, in the Parliament of the central government, the former central government of the Netherlands Antilles. And it was referred to as a lei de beyond. And what this law said? The law said, look, we have a lot of young people between the ages of 18 to 29 who are having difficulty finding employment. But if you, the business, take on one of those persons, we are going to exempt you from paying payroll taxes. We took the same law. This is the One St. Maartn People Party. We took the same law, and we said, look, the government in St. Maartn need every guilder that they can receive. So we would not agree to exempt the business from paying the payroll taxes, but you can give the business a tax credit. So let us say, for example, if the minimum wage is 18,000 guilders a year, that you would give the business a tax credit of about 9,000 guilders, okay? So above and beyond that, the business can deduct that 18,000 as a salary expense, they would also have the opportunity for an additional credit of 9,000 guilders. What would that have done? It would have meant that a lot of businesses would have looked at employing, to be a good corporate citizen, to employ our young people who are basically unemployed at this particular moment. We started a program at the St. Maartn Vocational School, where we went into the school that during their graduation, we said to them, look, we want to take at least about 8 or 10 of the young men who have studied or who did carpentry, mason, electrical, etc., and put them into the construction field, because when you look at it, here in St. Maartn, we don't have one local person who is in the construction business in terms of working as a mason, as a carpenter. And a good mason or carpenter earns close to $85 to $100 a day. While the young man that finishes school, he gets a job working for one of the distribution companies, could be Heineken or a Caribbean liquors, but he makes the minimum wage, $700. That's what he goes home with. And if he gets a promotion, because when he starts, he sits in the back of the truck, and the only promotion he can get is to sit up front, and that's for $50 more. Okay? While if he had accepted an apprenticeship to work as a carpenter helper, he would start with about $50 a day. And it means that if he works a whole week, 6 days a week, he earns about $300. In a month time, he's earning $1,200. Okay, but that's the area that we need to focus on, so that we get more of our young people in that area also.
Mr. Priest, you spoke earlier about, before the break, what your idea was all about in terms of putting young people to work. But the Prime Minister also have a program that is connected to 1 cent per kilowatt hour on the GB bill. Is that a viable program to put our young people back to work?
Well, you know, a good friend of mine, and I'm going to mention his name, Leo Friday, always says to me that anything to help our people, you shouldn't knock it. But it's not a matter of knocking it. I believe that the economy, I mean, small business is the backbone of every economy. I mean, throughout the world, that's what it is. Today, when you have a young person, or anyone as a matter of fact, that want to go into business, and they can have the best feasibility study, and when they go to the bank, whether it is the local bank or the development bank, they ask you for some type of collateral. Do you have a savings account? Do you have a piece of land? Do you have a property? And if you don't have that collateral, you are not going to get that loan, because none of the banks give the people an unsecured loan. in my opinion, the funding that could be generated with that 1 cent per kilowatt or the 1 cent per liter of gasoline that the Prime Minister has proposed would be better served if that money go into what we have proposed to government, a loan guarantee program. Because that young person that wants to go into business who does not have the collateral, that money can be used, because again, those programs, you see it throughout the world, a loan guarantee program. You see in Curacao, they have an institution called Court Padeco, and that's what they do. Basically, that if someone go to the bank and the bank find that the project is a viable project, that they would put aside a certain amount as a guarantee for that particular loan. And that's what is missing here in St. Maartn. So to be honest with you, I believe that the Ley de Beyond that I mentioned, the law that was passed in 1989, would have helped a lot of people. I must also talk about the program that was started by the former Minister of Education, get off the bus, get on the block, get off the block, get on the bus, get busy. And it's a pity that many of the governments, that when they take office, and even if it's a good program, but because it was not a program of theirs, that they have a tendency to throw it in the waste basket. But I believe that's a very, very good program that the former Minister, Dr. Rhoda Arundel, had basically brought to the table. And it's a pity that when there was a change of government, and I'm saying there are ways you can do it. I mean, you don't have to maintain the same name. You can give it a different name, but get the same results. Because if that program had continued, I believe that a lot of our young people who are sitting on the block, maybe smoking marijuana or just not working, many of them would be employed today. You know, so, but what we need to do is to find ways how we can employ our young people. And one way would be to start a business, because you have people, young people that went to sundial school. I remember I had a discussion with a young man that went to sundial school, and he said to me, you know, Mr. Priest, I wanted to buy a hot dog stand, you know, and I said, well, how much does a hot dog stand cost? He said about $5,000, you know, but he said I had everything prepared, you know, I had someone help me to prepare a business plan, but when I went to the bank, I couldn't even get the $5,000. Now, if that loan guarantee program was in place, okay, because if that business, let's say he was able to acquire that, get that hot dog stand, and if that started to work for him, and if he had one of those stands here in Phillipsburg, he may look to expand to over the hill, but he can't work both locations, so he would have had to hire somebody else. That's how you create employment, you know, and that's real employment. And I believe that that loan guarantee program is one of the things. So the money that would be generated, that 1 cent per kilowatt or the 1 cent per liter gasoline, I believe it would do this country a lot of justice if it goes into a loan guarantee program.
Are you aware of how difficult it is when you're a local or St. Maartn to start a business, even from all the different government agencies that involve?
Well, you know, again, we have, let's say, you have the Small Business Development Foundation. That's an institution that should have helped those, because there's a lot of people that did not had business education, wants to go into business, has the drive, wants to do things, but may not have the basic managerial skills because they never went to school. Now, the Small Business Development Foundation, that is what they're supposed to do, right, to provide that type of training. But other than that, it is also government responsibility to provide certain incentives to encourage people to go into business.
Well, I mean, I guess that's not what I really meant. What I meant is that if you're a young person that wants to start a business, you're literally discouraged by the red tape. The process is made so difficult for our own people, by our own people. So many people just give up because it's so difficult.
Yeah. Well, it is a fact. I think that, you know, in many cases when you need certain documentation, whether it's a business license or I had a case where I applied for a business license going back to 2009. And to be honest with you, I just acquired the license last year, July. Okay, so it shows you that, and I'm saying I have an idea, basically, what you have to do in order to get those things in place. But it took me a lot of years.
It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be because, of course, you know, you could have always set up because you have the Dutch nationality. You could have set up a sole proprietorship.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a call here. Oral Gibbs Live. Young caller. Hello. Young live caller.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Mr. Priest, I have asked several other persons on Mr. Oral Gibbs' show this particular question. And I'm first explaining you what I'm thinking in depth. Now, we are more economically stronger than many Caribbean islands in our area. They are not giving their inhabitants generic medicine. No. The argument can go on and on, but yes, but it's not harmful, it's not this. Let me tell you, it almost killed me. And I was then waiting for the internist. It almost killed me. And it was because of generic medicine. No, there are other people who feel comfortable with it. But many people are not telling the truth. They are afraid to talk. People are greatly intimidated here on the island. What I am saying, according to many sources, suitcases, releases of money have been carried off from this island unaccountable for. End of quote, unquote. No. You, an intelligent man, you have elderly people, not because we are elderly people and we are so, to speak, phasing out. Don't kill us faster. We are the father and grandfather and great-grandfather of the youth. If you don't have respect for your elderly, could you have any real respect in nation building? Search your mind. You tell me.
Well, you know, first of all, I believe that when we talk about genetic medicine and the fact that you have the doctors and you have all of those experts, so that any type of medication that comes into St. Maartn would have to be checked to see whether it is good for our people. And I'm saying it cannot only be because of cost savings that we are going to provide our people with an inferior type of medication. So it is something that would definitely need to be looked into. I've heard this discussion before where certain generic medicine is used by some people and it is working perfect. In other cases, it may not have the same results or may not give the same results to somebody else. But I believe that if we have sufficient grounds or information to indicate that the generic medicine has been affecting our people negatively, then I believe that we must do something about it. And it would not only be applicable to old people or to senior citizens, but I think to the general population, because we don't want to provide our young people with any type of medication that is not good for their health. So if we have enough complaints about the impact, the negative impact that genetic medicine is having on our people, then I believe it behooves the the Department of Inspection that deals with health to look into it and to see more or less what can be done and what type of measures can be taken in order for it to no longer have the negative impact on our people.
You know, what I noticed too, Mr. Priest, is that you know, we both grew up here in St. Maartn, and I never saw so many people ill like today. Now, remember when we were small, St. Maartn had a lot less people. But when you look at the population today, you know, I see so many people that are ill. And I think what people don't realize at times, and those are people in key positions in government, is that when a person is ill, it's not only just stress on that individual, but you're seeing stress on the wife or the husband, the children, the grandchildren. And it seems like people don't understand that. But I speak with people every day, and I hear their suffering, their pain, and it's throughout the whole family. And too many of our people have to wait so long before they can get referrals, etc. How you feel about that?
Yeah, well, that is indeed a major problem. I think that the SZV, I was just reading a week or two ago where there was a young man that went to Santo Domingo to have an operation, and because of some problem that he had in the hotel, he was put out of the hotel, and basically the representative of the SZV, this was in Santo Domingo, informed the hospital not to perform the surgery on this particular gentleman. Now, of course, you don't have all of the facts, but indeed you hear a lot of people that are complaining that it takes them such a long time. I know a gentleman that is doing some work for me, and he indicated to me that since last year, his wife had to go do an operation in Holland, and last year, about June, and they just got the approval a couple of weeks ago. And I am saying that if that is the case, that you must do an operation, and since June, and have to wait, almost a year in order to get a referral, then there's something definitely wrong with our system, in particular the SZV. And there isn't one day when I listen to the radio program, and if it's an open forum or some other different form, that you don't hear people complaining about the SZV as it pertains to the referrals. And not only that, but the cost involved, that we have to basically send many of our people outside of St. Maartn to get certain referrals. That also is very important, and therefore it is so important for us to get the construction of this new hospital up and running as quick as possible, so that we can bring in the necessary experts to St. Maartn, so that we don't have to send our people abroad, because it is also a known fact that when you send someone, whether it's to Colombia or to Santo Domingo, that once your people, if your people can visit you on a regular basis, in my opinion, I think it lessens the amount of time that you would remain ill. But you go to a foreign country, Santo Domingo, Colombia, if you don't speak Spanish, then you have a serious problem, because most of the physicians there don't speak English. So if you don't have somebody to be able to translate for you certain things, then you have a major problem. But it is something that we definitely have to look into, because people are complaining all the time that it's taking them such a long time, and when they go to the SZV, that they're being turned around, pushed around, and sometimes that they are feeling as if they're begging the SZV to do them a favor, while it's a right that they have. So it is an area too that we definitely have to look into.
Sometimes I wonder if the SZV isn't just overwhelmed now when you see how many people are ill.
Yeah. Well, again, they must have those numbers, but it is something, and when you see that, there got to be a reason, that all of these people are falling ill. So there got to be some. So again, it calls for some type of investigation in terms of why so many people are falling ill, and they should have that statistics at their office.
So, Mr. Priest, when you look at St. Maartn, here we have this little island. I think we passed 100,000 when you put all the undocumented people along with those that are documented, right?
Yes, I would honestly believe that we are someplace close to 100,000 people on this small 16-island.
And still at the same time, earlier you mentioned it about in terms of tax compliance of 23, 24%. That's so unusual because, to put it in simple terms, it means that if you have 100 people that are eligible to pay taxes, only how many are paying?
Well, the percentage is very small. And not only that, one of the things that you have, for example, when you look at many of these large property owners, when I talk about property owners, I talk about people that own homes, whether it's down Copacoy, Lowlands, Guana Bay, and elsewhere. And these people rent these homes out, but they pay no type of taxes here. So the people that are living here, they the one that have to carry the entire tax burden. In my opinion, I believe that if you take, for example, the businesses that have to register the Chamber of Commerce, that is a database that can be used to be able to identify those people. The same with GBE, because everyone in particular, you must have some type of connection unless you're living in some type of shanty town where, you know, A is feeding B and B feed, you know. But I think most established homes, they have their proper electricity, water, and electricity and water meters. So therefore, those can be a database that government can use to be able to track those people down, to see more or less whether they are basically complying, because they know where you live, they know what business you have, they know where I live, and we're the one that every time you look around, there's a marshal knocking on your door, you know, and they can meet you any place, and they can tell you, well, look, Mr. Priest, can I see you for a minute? And then they basically will tell you they have a dwangschrift for you. But I believe those that are really benefiting from the development of the island, most of them are basically getting away scot-free. But it's the small man, as they put it, are the one that basically have to carry the burden. Because you hear a lot of people saying that, yes, you know, I owe 500,000 and they're putting pressure on me. 400 guilders, 500 guilders, and they're putting pressure on me that if I don't, that what they're going to do with the stuff in my house and different things like that, you know. But
it's so strange, you know, because I used to tell people that wasn't true, and I realized it is true.
No, I believe it. I believe it because, I mean, when you hear one story once and you're hearing it all the time, because they know who you are. They know where Jones live. They know who the priest is. They know the Peters. They know they know who these people are. And I mean, they're doing the job. I mean, you know, that you're not going to be hostile towards them because they're doing their job. But it's very unfortunate that a small percentage of the people of St. Maartn are the one that are carrying the entire tax burden of this island. So there's a lot of things that needs to happen. And therefore, when we come to the election on September 26th, you know, that people need to really look and see, because you're going to have the established political parties. And this is one of the things that I have said. You have some of them that are talking. I heard a member who is joining the US party indicate about the bureaucracy and what needs to happen. And I'm listening, and I'm saying to myself, but this person can be in government. And not only is he in government, he's also responsible for the Ministry of Tourism, where business licenses and all of those falls under. So you have a lot of them that are sitting in office, but I continue to say they don't have the slightest idea what their role is. Because when you're sitting in office as a member of parliament, and I know for a fact that since the election in 2014, the Once in Maartn People Party, we have submitted various proposals to government in terms of certain things that we believe can happen in order to improve the condition of the people of St. Maartn. But of course, the members of parliament, they would never acknowledge it because it doesn't come from them. And that, I think, is a shame. Because if you don't have the idea, and if somebody brings it to you, you are a member of parliament, you have to bring it to the floor of parliament so you can basically debate it. But unfortunately, they don't. And that's why our people are suffering the way they're suffering today.
So you're going to be contesting the parliamentary election on the 26th of September this year?
Yes, that is definitely our intention. I believe that people would definitely wake up because the established political parties that are there in government, when you look at we talk about the integrity chamber, there was basically where the Constitutional Court has rejected it. But when you talk about integrity in St. Maartn, and in particular when it comes to government, that when you have a country that in 6 years and you have 6 different governments, when you look at that several members in Parliament who have had some type of brushing with the law, that tells you that there's something wrong. And someone asked me today, Mr. Priest,
Go ahead. I only have over 25
Yes, Mr. Priest, if one of those persons who have some brushing with the law have approached you to come on your list, would you have done it? I said, well, look, I can speak for myself. First of all, if I had any type of brushing with the law, I would not postulate myself. But I can't talk for those individuals. They must know what they are doing.
We're almost all the time, but Mr. Priest, 20 seconds closing.
Well, you know, first of all, I believe that the St. Maartn is at a very important area right now, and that the people for the upcoming election must start to think twice. It cannot be based on selling your votes, because we've seen what selling your votes have done for you, that those who bought your vote did absolutely nothing for you. You have an opportunity in the upcoming election to select people that are definitely, who have the know-how, who can definitely make a difference in your life. It's no longer about you, it's about your children, your grandchildren, and your great-great-grandchildren. You have to prepare for them now, because when they ask you the question, what have you done when all of this was happening in St. Maartn, you must be able to step up to the plate and tell them that you have done your best.
All right. Thank you for coming, and much success.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Till then, good night. Take care. Bye.